In this video, I'm going to demonstrate inserting a slicer into the worksheet where your pivot table is stored. A slicer is just a control which provides a quick, easy way of filtering the pivot table. So to insert a slicer, you need to first of all be clicked in your pivot table so that you have pivot table tools available. And the slicer command is on the Options tab, and I'm just going to click Insert Slicer. The dialog box shows up with a list of all of the fields that are available for this particular pivot table. I'm going to use the Location field as my slicer, so I'm going to click on Location and click OK. This is the slicer control, and as you can see, it has buttons for each of the locations in the museum. So before I actually demonstrate how that works, I'm going to go ahead and do some quick formatting. I'm going to move it up closer to the pivot table. Then I'm going to apply a slicer style, and I'm going to use the dark 3 style. And I'm also going to change the size of the pivot table to 1.9 high by 1.3 wide. Okay, so now I've got my slicer formatted. I can now use it. And so if I want to see just the items that are in the East Pavilion, the value for those items, I will click on that button, and all of the rest of the locations are filtered out. I can add other locations to my filter by holding down the Control key on my keyboard and clicking on those buttons. So now I have the East, South, and West Pavilions showing. Notice that the areas that are not selected are grayed out. So that's how you insert and use a slicer. The next thing that I'd like to demonstrate is refreshing the pivot table. The pivot table, as you recalled, is based on the information in the art collection worksheet. And so I'm going to go ahead right now and switch to the art collection worksheet. And I need to update the value of a painting by an artist called Kreidler. Excuse me. So I'm going to use the Find and Select button to do that. And there is the Kreidler painting, or sculpture actually, and its value has been upgraded to $4,000. So I'm just going to type in 4,000 and enter, and then switch back to my pivot table. And before I refresh the pivot table, I'm going to go ahead and clear the filter from my slicer. And you'll notice that right now the grand total for all of the art objects is $1,118,723. So I'm going to click on the pivot table so I can access my pivot table tools. Then I'll click the Options tab, and in the data group I'm going to click on Refresh. Now if we look at the grand total for all of the art objects, you'll see that it's changed to $1,121,723. So when you update information in your main table, if you want that reflected in the pivot table, you need to refresh the pivot table. In the next video, I will look at grouping items in a field and also creating a pivot chart.